morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. The website at allamericangold.com, and I hope you had a great weekend. March is over, but the madness continues. The Ncaa Finals today. North Carolina and Kansas. You know what? I didn't watch any of it. I didn't. My team wasn't at Syracuse. We weren't so good this year. And then the game of the century, if you will, Duke in North Carolina on Saturday. I will say, outside of Georgetown, I probably hate Duke in North Carolina more than anything. I heard it was a great game. Didn't watch any of it. Coach K's retiring. Good riddance. But that's my sports recap. Jason, I got to tell you right now, interesting developments. We got gold up right now. Crude oil's up. Shanghai has gone into total lockdown. I would imagine right now, if Shanghai wasn't in lockdown, we'd probably be seeing crude oil prices at least $5 or $10 a barrel higher. And again, remember, this is just a pause in the action when it comes to oil prices. Gas prices are not done going up. But Jason, apparently J.P. Morgan once again went to, I don't know who they go to. Do they go to, probably not Joe Biden, right? Maybe they go to Jay Powell. But once again, the clearinghouse, Russia had a bond payment due. This one, the payment, remember the last one was like $117 million. This payment was well over $400 million. They got another one next week that's, I think, almost $600 million. But they went to somebody in the government, Jason, after the clearinghouse said, nope, we're not allowing Russia to make the payment. J.P. Morgan went to somebody in our government, and lo and behold, Russia was able to make a bond payment today.
Oh, well, I guess, what? Kick the can down the road to the next payment, right?
I mean, what? At what point do you kind of look foolish? Hey, these sanctions, we mean it! Oh, wait a minute, J.P. Morgan called. Jamie Dimon's on the phone. Right? Could you imagine Joe Biden, Mr. President, Jamie Dimon's on the phone. Tell him I'm in the bathroom. I'll have to call him back later.
I did see one guy report that the Russians shut off that pipeline he'd been talking about, but I couldn't verify it with anybody else. That was yesterday. So I guess they're still pumping that oil still, Joe.
Yeah. So I have not. Again, there was a report, I want to say on Saturday, that the gas flows went into reverse. I was not able to confirm that either. So right now, I still think, I don't know, but based on how the markets are reacting, I think the oil, or the gas, the natural gas is still flowing, but it's going to be very interesting. So this weekend, of course, all of a sudden, we've got the quote-unquote massacre that happened in one of these towns that Russia pulled out of in Ukraine. I don't know if this is a false flag event. Remember the chemical attack in Syria? And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I don't know. But very interesting how all of a sudden now they're saying we've got to respond. We got to get even bigger sanctions. And why do I think the two are tied together? That Russia's going to cut the gas off here any day now, so they needed this other event to justify that. Hey, you're not cutting us off, we're cutting you off, type of a thing.
Yeah, I think Joe. They want this war. The Western powers, the guys that are making the decision, not the people of these. The funny thing, the citizens of these countries never want any of this stuff. The news reports it as if the people of these countries support all this stuff, but they want this war, Joe. I was looking at this report with all that's going on in Ukraine and sanctions and shipping tanks and planes into into Ukraine and, war, right? Wouldn't you think that if Finland wanted to vote on becoming part of NATO, wouldn't you think they'd just put that off for a while? Wouldn't you think that this is not really the time to vote Finland into NATO? Let's just hold off on that for a while. Wouldn't that be the logical thing to do? But instead, they're really pushing to a vote whether Finland should join NATO and force Russia to react to that. I mean, come on. How ridiculous. What leader of a country would want to do such a thing in the middle of war, right?
Right. You bring up our great. Hey, we're going to put that off for a little bit. Hey, Finland, no offense. We'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Right?
They could have voted on this last year, and they could be voting on it next year. No, they want to vote on it in the middle of chaos. That just shows you that this thing is. I'm telling you, Joe, it's rigged. They want war so bad. Joe Biden, remember that package that he signed, that first stimulus that when he first became president? I found out that, and I got to look it up here, but so many millions of dollars was put into shutting off farmlands and stop producing. They're paying farmers to not produce food last year.
Yeah, there was a big article out. We do a lot of. People are surprised how much farming gets done here in Arizona. But between Phoenix and Casa Grande, really between Phoenix and Tucson, Casa Grande kind of sits in the middle. There's tons of farming going out. Huge stories over the weekend. Just the canals are empty. The fields are all burnt up. All the water's being shut off because the Lake Powell emergency. And again, talking about rising food prices. Wait till I tell you what's happened in German supermarkets today and why that's an omen for what's coming here to the United States. Patriot Radio News Hour. Don't touch that dial. $800-951-0592. French energy prices hitting a new all-time record high, spike to their power prices 3,000 euros. They don't tell me what it means, but they just say they got this chart here that goes all the way back to 2008. This is the highest price ever that the French are paying for power. Not to be outdone, Germany. Of course, Germany, the Weimar Republic, and we talked a lot about how the sanctions really after Germany, after World War I, really led to World War II. It's kind of funny. Now we're talking about the sanctions could lead to World War III. But hyperinflation, Germany recording the highest inflation in over a generation. Reuters is reporting that everyday goods and grocery products at German retail establishments, these are German supermarkets, are going to explode between 20 and 50%. They're saying that after a wave of price hikes of about 5% across pretty much the entire supply chain, starting today, the second wave will start, will certainly be in double digits. Aldi's, one of their big grocery market chains, said that prices will be anywhere from 20 to 50% in the coming weeks. Meat, sausage, butter are going to be coming specifically going to be significantly more expensive. Aldi's last week raised prices on 160 items, then added another 20 more to that, and now says, hey, guess what? We're going to be raising prices on pretty much everything. And Jason, they're saying that some of the everyday items could jump as much as 50%.
Yeah, Joe, that's going to continue to happen, I think, through the rest of this year. And I was looking at the inflative cycle of the 70s here in the United States. It's going to be different this time, but really took off in 1973, peaked, came down, back down to 5% inflation, then peaked back up to 15%. We could easily, over an 8-year period, have the same thing happen. Maybe condensed over 4 to 5 years. You heard, the bird flu. Oh, the bird flu. They're killing millions of chickens in fowl right now because, well, they're sick, right? Well, they're killing them, Joe, because they took a PCR test and they tested positive, and then we got to kill them all.
Yes, that's right. Guess what? Just since February, you brought it up, so why not? Egg prices up 52% here in the U.S. just since February. Hotel prices also all-time record high for lodging. They saying that the average daily hotel rate hit $149.38 last week. Listen, I don't know where you're staying for that. At least, well, you can stay for that price here in Phoenix, and there's places you can stay for cheaper. I wouldn't want to stay there, but you can. But in you go to the high rent districts, there's rents here, Jason, that are $1,500, $2,000 a night. A lot of the places in Scottsdale, $400 or $500 a night. Everything's just insane.
Yeah, those Motel 8s, those cheap, if you're traveling around the country, you used to buy, I don't get a room for $25 or $75 or whatever. That's all gone. It's like $200 a night for like low-end hotels down the highway. It's crazy. And Joe, the food, I'm going to tell you now, the reason that they're warning about food shortages is because they have created this thing. This is a planned event. I'm going to go back to last year. It's called the Conservation Reserve Program. This is to pay farmers to stop using farmland and to make sure that that environmentally sensitive land is not being used for farms. And he put $2.4 billion into it last year when they passed that first stimulus when Biden came in, and they're increasing more money and having more lands not farmed this year.
What's so funny is the article that was in the Arizona Republic over the weekend. A lot of the farmers in Pinal County there near Casa Grande have sold. They just had to sell.
Yep.
And sold it to solar plants. Right? They're gonna, hey, we're gonna take food. This is where we grew food, and we're gonna replace it with solar panels. Now that sounds wonderful. Here's one problem with that: you can't eat solar panels, Jason.
It sounds like it's environmentally sensitive land, I guess. So don't farm there, Joe.
Well, one of the advantages, I would always say, well, why are they using farmland for that? We got all kinds of land. Right? I mean, if you ever been to Arizona, there's desert everywhere. Why would you take farmland when, hey, just go 2 more miles and there's 100 miles of empty desert? Well, the answer is simple. The farmland's already been leveled, right? It's already been set up. It's perfectly flat. It's easy. All you got to go in is run a scraper, right? Flatten it. It's already flat, but get rid of the grooves where the crops were. Real simple. Boom, 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 and you can put up your solar panels. They don't have to move any cactus, right? They don't have to worry about any boulder formations, right? It's all cleared out, ready to go.
Joe, we're a country that's energy dependent, even though we don't have to be. And the other thing that America is now, we're still a huge exporter of food. It almost seems like that they need to really push America away from being the world reserve currency and push this new economic reset. You can't have it if the country is not food dependent. It's almost like the plan is to make America energy and food dependent so that they can move this new economic system into place, Joe.
This just breaking. Dmitry Medvedev, he is Russia's former president. So I guess this is pre-Putin. Is now the deputy secretary of the country's Security Council. He said that Russia now says that they will only supply friendly nations with its agricultural products. We will supply food and crops only to our friends. Fortunately, we have a lot of them, and they are not all in Europe and not in North America. We will sell our crops for rubles and for their national currency in agreed proportion. So there was a map put out today of the non-friendly nations. It was the United States and Canada. That was it. In North and South America, there's only 2 countries on it. Us and Canada. Then you have pretty much all of Europe. And then there's Australia and Japan. That's pretty much the list. Everybody else is like, hey, Russia's like, hey, we're good from them. And they're saying that Russia is now going to. So now we heard about natural gas. As of right now, we think the gas is still flowing. Now Russia says it is going to halt all exports. By the way, they are. Here's where they're big at. Wheat we know about, but sunflower oil, barley. By the way, the wheat alone, over $10 billion in wheat exports alone that come out of Russia. So again, Jason, you think about in Germany today, supermarkets raising prices 20 to 50%. At the same time, Russia's coming out and saying, hey, you know what? Unfriendly countries, you're not getting any agriculture products either.
And think about this, Joe, how ridiculous this sounds. We sell gold. Why would we just suddenly say, well, women have been acting poorly, so we're just going to stop selling to women as of today? It wouldn't do us any good to just have less customers for what we sell. It makes no sense. Russia shouldn't be cutting down their customers. We shouldn't be, America shouldn't be cutting down who we export to either. It makes no sense at all, and they're all, well, because there's a war. Well, why would Russia even do this? Economically, how would it benefit them unless there's something more at stake here? It makes no sense, Joe, to break down all these supply chains and cut down who you can actually buy your products. When you break down supply lines, you're going to have shortages on shelves, the prices, and then the inflation is going to get worse. This is why you buy gold and silver, because the powers that be are forcing this emergency upon us, Joe.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because of how little, really, in my opinion, how little debt Russia owes as far as, whether it's in dollars or euros. I mean, think about it. In the last 6 to 8 weeks, they've only had 2 bond payments. That's it. Now, granted, they got another one next week. But as of right now, Russia's making those payments.
Yep.
And by all accounts, they can make the payment again next week. It's just a matter of whether or not Jamie Dimon's going to call Joe Biden or not. I don't know. But it just tells you that, Russia's been working at this for a long time to get out of the American-controlled financial system. And now all of a sudden, Jason, they're coming around. And again, are we any different? Right? Don't we do the same thing to the nations we don't think are friendly?
That's correct. Joe, Russia is doing the exact same moves as Libya did in 2012. And Libya is not the military might that Russia is. And look what America did to that situation. Obama and Hillary Clinton just went down there and our so-called armed some so-called rebels against Muammar Gaddafi and took him out. And if Russia is trying to economically position themselves in a strong place in the world and ally themselves with China and India, they're probably going to win, Joe, because they've been selling off American debt for years. I think at one time they had almost no U.S. treasuries a couple of times, Joe. So they were positioning themselves to have a commodity-based economy, which a commodity-based economy is different than a fiat currency economy, Joe.
Well, how about this? China just bought a record amount of U.S. corn. The deal comes as shipments from Ukraine. You find these little things out. Ukraine, the fourth biggest exporter of corn in the world. China, a big buyer of Ukrainian corn, says, hey, guess what? The planting season's disrupted. We're not going to have enough supply from them. And they just ordered a record amount of U.S. corn. The deal, 676,000 tons. Wow. 676,000 tons of corn to be delivered on August 31st, and another 408,000 tons to be delivered at the end of the year. It is the over 1,084,000 metric tons of corn, the biggest purchase ever by the Chinese. And, of course, that just tells you what, prices are going to get a lot more expensive here as well because there's only X amount of it out there. And of course, U.S. farmers right now, what are we doing?
We're shutting
farmers
them down.
Are dumb. They're like, corn takes way more fertilizer than soybeans. Let's plant less. I mean, this is just what's going to happen.
They're being paid not to do farming, too. Starting last year, before all this food stuff happened, hey, Biden's just going to pay you farmers to just sit down and do nothing. And then we're going to export record amounts to China. That doesn't sound good, Joe, does it?
Yeah, I mean, this is just turning into a huge nightmare. And again, don't be surprised. Like I said, what do you think? Germany's raising prices 20 to 50%, and we're not going to face the same fate here? Of course we are. Everybody gets the same stuff from the same people, right? You know, that's just how the world works. This new, this global order, we no longer can be self-sufficient. Patriot Radio News Hour. Be self-sufficient financially by making sure you got enough gold and silver put away. 800-951-0592. U.S. $10 liberties today. They're normally $1,155. $1,140 today at 800-951-0592. Senate Republicans and apparently Joe Manchin are now begging the SEC to reconsider its plan to disclose information about greenhouse gas. Of course, remember, we've been telling everybody about it's already done. Right? Where were and again, we're seeing people don't realize the SEC isn't controlled by Congress. They make rules to whatever they see fit on, and of course, really, ultimately, at the end of the day, believe me, almost everything they do works against the average investor out there and is in favor of these big financial companies and these big multinational conglomerate corporations. These rules are expected to go in December. They got real aggressive. They got upset and wrote a letter to the chair of the SEC, who, by the way, is again a little late, don't you think, Jason? I mean, where was this letter before? Where was the outrage before? And again, I don't even know if anyone's even really talking about it outside of me and you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the mass media. They have to follow one script, Joe. They want you to move in one specific direction. They want you to be fearful about one thing, but ignore something else. So, yeah, you're right, Joe. People should really try to get out there and actually, I guess, research what really is going on. I mean, that's why. If
you're listening to this and you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, you better wake up. This is a rule that the SEC voted 3-1. It's kind of funny. That's it. Just 4 people decide. Yeah, that's how it works. It's already agreed on. They're getting ready they're still in the comment section of this. I want to say that ends in May. And then based on what they heard from these big multinational corporations, they're going to give the final rule. But essentially what it is, really simply put, is every publicly traded company not only has to say, this is how much greenhouse gas we emit, here's our plan to reduce it. Oh, by the way, also, here's the non-publicly traded companies we deal with and how much greenhouse gas they emit in whatever they do for us. Whether, hey, it may be a trucking company, right, that just simply takes the product from the factory to a ship and then from a ship to warehouse, who knows, all of these things. And this is a absolute absolute small business killer. Because all is it simply going to do is because here's what they want these companies. Show us how you're going to get rid of that. And the answer is going to be simple. Well, hey, trucking company, I know that we've used you for years, but how many electric trucks you buy? What? Do you know how much those things cost? Yeah, well, I don't know. We're hoping to maybe buy one here, in the next 5 or 10 years. How many self-driving trucks do you have? Okay, well, you know what? These rules, gotta feel bad, but we can't use you anymore. If you can't come out and shell out $1 billion, $5 million, $10 million, if you can't go buy a carbon credit, then you no longer can work at our factories any longer. You can no longer provide the maintenance for this. You can no longer be a trucking company for it. You can no longer be one of our suppliers, Jason.
Yeah, you kind of made me think of something interesting about those ESG scores, Joe, which is, if you can get yourself a driverless truck and get rid of that carbon-based life form that drives it around, your score's going to go up. They're going to reward all automation.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Listen, and that's going to be the big thing. Oh, yeah, well, we're making a change because and of course, this big company, they've got robots. You don't. This big company, he bought a carbon credit. You can't, right? It's absolutely ridiculous.
And Bezos, remember Bezos,
cost
Joe?
A lot now.
Remember Bezos buying all the robots and shutting down other companies' ability to have their robots on their warehouses because he just bought the company that makes the robots? It's talk about going straight up to the biggest companies. Yeah, they were doing robots in their warehouses, Joe. And then there's like, well, why don't we just buy the company that does it? And then I think it was Walgreens and Gap and a few other big warehouse companies. They suddenly couldn't buy robots for their warehouses, Joe. It's just dangerous territory.
How about this U.S. factory orders? Which has been on fire. Their first drop in the last 9 months, and it was a pretty big one, down 0.6% month on month. They said that they were still expecting for factory orders to rise, so this caught them off guard in February. Now they say that the drop is one of the largest going all the way back to the start of COVID, April of 2020. And again, it's the first one. Defense orders, by the way, this doesn't surprise anyone. Defense orders were up 14%. So if you actually took out if you took defense out, the drop was actually almost a 7% drop. But I guess we should be fortunate that war's here because otherwise the number would have been even worse, Jason.
That's correct, Joe. That's correct. And who knows where it's going to go. Like I said, if Finland and Sweden suddenly want to join NATO this year. No, not last year, this year. And then, of course, I see the reports of whistleblowers in China saying that there's a planned invasion of Taiwan this fall, which would be October. This thing, Joe, could get so bad so quickly. And would you have been nice? You would have been nice to buy a little gold before the Ukraine invasion, Joe. Wouldn't that have been a better time to buy it? And if things are going to escalate, it's you got to be buying this stuff. It doesn't matter what you're buying; you got to buy it.
And
early.
again, I'm one of those guys. Oh, that's not going to happen. They're not. They're gonna come to their senses, right? They never did. And it seems like common sense has just gone out the window. It really does. This administration, think about this. We're releasing 1 million barrels a day out of our strategic oil reserve. And yet, not doing anything to increase oil production. Matter of fact, they're doing the opposite. Did you hear now where they're saying, hey, if you don't start drilling on these leases that you're paying for, you either need to give them back or we're going to start charging you. And, of course, we all know how it works. If it's a viable lease, right, they've got to go through probably 5 years of EPA and everything else before they can even drill. It's absolute nonsense. This administration has no clue what they're doing.
False scarcity,
Radio
Joe.
News Hour.
False scarcity. That's what it is, Joe.
Yeah, the false scarcity is creating actual scarcity. Get ready. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592, U.S. $10 Liberties at $1,140. So that's $15 off at 800-951-0592. This pre-33, and, of course, they're Liberty. So 1866 to 1907, the most private way to own gold. And think about, man, how big is privacy going to be going forward? Just a huge thing. $1,140 at 800-951-0592. Howard Schultz is now the new interim CEO at Starbucks again. The cost of that Starbucks getting a lot more expensive, and I'm not just talking about record coffee prices at the wholesale level. Schultz announced that effective immediately, Starbucks is going to suspend its buybacks. So this is a company, I think they bought some stupid amount, like $10 billion of stock back every year. And then, of course, what do? They just reissue it back out to these guys, right? It'd be interesting to see how many shares of Starbucks Schultz has gotten while they're allegedly, quote-unquote, buying them back. But he said the reason is, as more and more Starbucks vote to unionize, that effective immediately, Starbucks needs to invest more in our people and in our store, and that is the only way to create long-term stakeholder values. And Jason, why do I got the funny feeling that pay at Starbucks is going to become a lot more? And, I saw an article today where now $18 an hour is kind of the new unofficial minimum wage in most states in America. And based on for Starbucks to stop buying back stock, I got a funny feeling that pay isn't going to stop at $18.
Yeah, I don't know, Joe. You think Starbucks would be one of those things when times get tougher that they're not going to do too well? I mean, why buy a coffee for that much when you can get essentially the same type of coffee somewhere else for a lot cheaper? So we'll have to see if Starbucks weathers this storm here coming up soon, Joe, because you said it best on the way out of the break. False scarcity creating real scarcity. False scarcity doesn't mean there's no scarcity. It just means that it doesn't have to be scarce to begin with. And with false scarcity is real scarcity, Joe. That's what's happening.
A lot of people want to. Oh no, we're energy independent, and nothing could be further from the truth. The realities are, the United States consumes a little over 22 million barrels of crude oil a day. Okay, and that could be in the form, right, of gasoline or diesel or what have you, but 22 million barrels, over 22 million barrels a day. We only produce, and right now we've ramped up, believe it or not, but we only produce 12. That means there's 10 million barrels a day coming from somewhere else. Now, a lot of it's Canada, Mexico, but why is it Canada and Mexico? To Jason's point, there's no reason for it to be. It's not like, well, you know why? Well, this is all we can do. And by the way, next year we're only going to produce 11 million, then 10 because we're out, right? There's no more oil. That's not the case. I mean, think about what we could be doing right now as we sit here and we think about gas at $4.60. The Biden administration saying by 2026, cars got to average 49 miles to the gallon. I'm like, what? Now, of course, there's so many loopholes in there that a lot, your vehicles probably aren't going to get that, but neither here nor there. 49 miles to the gallon. Do you know that before they got involved in this, the average gas mileage in a car was about 13 miles to the gallon? And, of course, what was gas, 25 cents?
Yeah, it didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
Didn't matter. Right now, all of a sudden, they're talking about energy independence. We could be producing 10 million more barrels a day and not have to get anything from anybody. right? You think about how much now they're talking, we got to redo the whole supply chain. Because guess what? Well, Russia did something we don't like, and now we want to kick them out. And they're talking about, we talk about how much stuff from China. Could you imagine? I'll just say this. What would it be like if China said, that's it for Taiwan. Taiwan's ours, and you're not going to do anything about it. What do you think the ramifications of that would be? I mean, Russia's bad enough, right, Jason?
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, that's the things in 2022 can go from bad to worse. And when you see that these are planned events ahead of this war that started, that America was actually paying farmers to not farm in 2021. And then in 2022, you have food shortages. But yeah, let's not talk about how Biden paid $2.4 billion to farmers to not farm. It's environmentally sensitive land. Let's just not farm there anymore. Those are the kinds of things. Hey, we're going to shut down any government lands for doing any oil production. That's false scarcity, and that's a pre-planned event. Everyone knows that China wants to go into Taiwan. And for a lot of people, they knew that, maybe not in this country specifically, but, hey, Russia wanted to go into Ukraine. This NATO-sensitive situation, this is how they're going to play this. And what if Russia starts putting a bunch of troops on the border with Finland? Just think of how crazy people will start acting then, Joe.
Yeah, it just is. Everyone's, again, I go back to all of these policies that have been put into place, just really making the situation so much worse than it ever needed to be. And yet, you know what? The only ones that really pay the price are you and I. We're the ones that, at the end of the day, are going to be paying 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times as much as we paid just a few years ago. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. So think about like the stock market rally and all the so-called great returns, which I think is where that phase is probably over with. Not to say we couldn't hit another all-time high before it's all said and done. It just looks less likely. And like I said, I think it's going to be decades before we see it again. You know, the Census Bureau? I want to make sure I want to give credit to the right people. The Federal Reserve, with help from the Census Bureau, said, here's how it's played out since March of 2020. The top 1%, so the wealthiest people in America, well, they just crushed it. Their wealth skyrocketed from, they said the top 1% had on average, like to be a 1%er before 2020, you had to have like $24 million, I guess, assets, right? That got you into the 1% club. Today, you need 36 million. So that's 12 million more.
50%.
From 24 million. That's 50%. 50%. How about the next 9%? So that's the 2 to 10%. Well, to be a 10%er, if you will, you had to have a little over about 4.5 million. Today, you've got to have about 5.5 million. So that's about what? 25%? Maybe, right?
Yep. How
about the next 40%? Which I think a lot of people listening would like to believe we're in that, hey, that's me, right? I'm the next 40%. The graph is so, put it this way. if there's an increase, it's so significantly insignificant, I can't even tell you what the number is. I know it's below $1 million to be at the bottom end of the 40 million. I don't know. Is it $100,000? I can't tell. Because just so you know, the reason I can't tell is because the chart starts at 2 million. And it's well below the 2 million. But it's, if I was to guess, I'm thinking maybe a couple 100,000, something like that, to get to the bottom of the 40%. So that puts you, that's essentially the first 50% of the country. The other 50%, there's the chart's at pretty much zero, and it's still at zero, Jason.
So at the bottom of that 40%, you're basically, if you're a homeowner with equity in your house, you're on the bottom end of that thing.
Yeah, I would venture to say that's probably how the next 40% got some money, was they owned a home of some sort. That's probably a good way of looking at it.
Yep.
U.S. $10 Liberties, $1,140 at 800-951-0592.